I've told you 5 stories. 6 different ways a bank can become your nightmare. A vault that traps you. A safety deposit box that holds secrets you wish you'd never learned. A withdrawal that never stops. A teller who sees too much. A foreclosure that kills. An account that refuses to die. All of them happened. All of them are real. And all of them started the same way. Someone trusted that the system would work. That the bank would protect them. That institutions built on security and stability and trust would honor those principles. But here's what I need you to understand: banks are not people. They're systems. And systems don't care about you. They care about rules and procedures and policies designed to protect the institution, not the individual. When something goes wrong, and eventually, something always goes wrong, you're on your own. You're stuck in a vault, or holding inheritance you never wanted, or watching money appear and disappear, or processing horrors you can't fix. Or losing your home over an amount that means nothing to the institution but everything to you, or trapped in an account that won't let you go. And when you call for help, when you beg someone to see that the system is failing you, you'll get the same response every time. I'm just following procedure. That's what the system shows. I can't override policy. There's nothing I can do. So what do? How do you protect yourself from the very institutions designed to protect your money? I wish I had better answers. I wish I could tell you there's a foolproof way to avoid becoming another horror story. But the truth is, you can't. Not completely. Because the system is larger than you, more powerful than you, and designed to protect itself first and serve you second. All you can do is stay vigilant. Question everything. Read every statement. Challenge every fee. Document every conversation. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. And remember, when a bank tells you everything is fine, that's when you need to worry most. Because by the time you realize something's wrong, it's already too late. The vault has already closed. The money has already disappeared. The account has already been flagged. The foreclosure has already been filed. The system has already decided. And you're just another story. Another case number. Another file to be processed. Unless you fight. Unless you refuse to accept that the system is always right. Unless you become the person who questions, who challenges, who demands better. That's the only real defense. Because these stories, they're not isolated incidents. They're warnings. About what happens when institutions become more important than people. About what happens when policy becomes more important than humanity. About what happens when profit becomes more important than protection. 6 stories. 6 warnings. 6 ways your bank can destroy you. Learn from them. Because the next story might be yours. And trust me, you don't want to be the one telling it. You want to be the one who saw it coming. Who fought back. Who survived. That's the only happy ending these stories have. The ones where you walk away before the vault closes. Before the money disappears. Before the system swallows you whole. Walk away while you still can. Because some doors, once they close, never open again. And some accounts, once they're opened, never truly close. Remember that. The next time you're in a bank, remember that. Remember Marcus, trapped in the vault. Remember Jennifer, carrying her grandmother's guilt. Remember David, watching money appear from nowhere. Remember Amy, processing foreclosures that kill. Remember Ellen, too late to save Mrs. Chen. Remember Michael, still receiving statements from an account he closed 3 years ago. Remember them. And when the teller smiles and says, "How can I help you today?" remember that help is what they promise. But protection? Protection is what they provide. For themselves. Not for you. Never for you. That's the real horror story. The one that never ends. Because tomorrow, someone else will walk into a bank. Someone else will trust the system. Someone else will become a story like these. Unless they remember. Unless they're careful. Unless they realize that the biggest risk isn't robbery or fraud or theft. It's believing that the people holding your money actually care what happens to you. They don't. And they never will. That's not horror. That's just banking. I used to think bank vaults were the safest places on earth. That's what they tell you, right? Reinforced steel, time locks, security systems that could probably withstand a nuclear blast. But I learned the hard way that sometimes the thing designed to protect you becomes the thing that traps you. My name is Marcus, and I was a bank manager at a regional branch in Columbus, Ohio. Been doing it for 12 years. Same routine every day, unlock the doors at 9, lock them at 5, sleep well knowing I'd kept people's money safe. It was boring work, honestly. The most exciting thing that ever happened was when Mrs. Patterson's Chihuahua got loose in the lobby and peed on the loan application desk. That all changed on a Tuesday in March. I remember it was a Tuesday because that's when we did the quarterly vault inspection. Me and two tellers, Sarah and James, had to go through the entire inventory, check the safety deposit boxes, make sure everything was accounted for. Standard procedure. We'd done it 100 times. The vault at our branch wasn't anything special, about 12 by 15 feet, walls about 3 feet thick, one of those classic circular doors that looks like something out of a heist movie. The time lock was set to open at 8:30 a.m. and close at 6 p.m. automatically. Between those hours, you could open and close it manually as many times as you needed. After 6, it was sealed until the next morning. No exceptions. The manufacturer had made it that way deliberately. Even if someone robbed us at gunpoint at closing time, they couldn't get into the vault. It would just stay locked. We started the inspection around 3:30 p.m. Plenty of time, or so I thought. Sarah was checking the cash drawers, James was verifying the safety deposit box logs, and I was doing a final count of the bundled bills we kept in reserve. Everything was normal. Everything was fine. Then James knocked over a stack of coin rolls. It sounds stupid, I know. But those things scattered everywhere, rolling into corners, under shelves. We all got down on our hands and knees to pick them up, laughing about it. James was always clumsy. We gave him shit about it constantly. Butterfingers James, Sarah called him. He was a good sport about it. I remember checking my watch. 4:47 p.m. Still plenty of time. We gathered up the coins, finished our counts, and I started locking up the interior cages where we kept the larger denominations. Sarah was already heading for the door. I remember she was talking about her daughter's soccer game that evening, asking if she could leave 5 minutes early to make it. Yeah, go ahead, I told her. We're basically done anyway. That's when James realized he'd left his phone inside one of the safety deposit box alcoves. He went back to grab it while I did one final visual sweep. Everything looked good. The vault was organized, counted, perfect. I felt that small sense of satisfaction you get from a job done right. Alright, let's get out of here, I said. James was still grabbing his phone. Sarah was already outside the vault door, waiting. I stepped toward the exit, my hand reaching for the interior handle. That's when the door swung shut. Not slammed. Not violently. It just swung closed with this heavy, definitive sound. Chunk. The kind of sound that means something has locked into place. For maybe 3 seconds, none of us moved. Sarah was staring at the door from the outside, her expression confused. James and I were staring at it from the inside. Marcus? Sarah's voice was muffled through the steel. Did you close that? No, I said. My heart was starting to beat faster. No, I didn't touch it. I grabbed the interior handle and turned it. Nothing. It didn't budge even a fraction of an inch. I pushed. Pulled. Twisted harder. The handle moved, but the door didn't. It was completely locked. Sarah, can you open it from out there? I heard her trying the exterior handle through the thick door. It's not moving. James was beside me now, his face pale. Check the time lock, he said. I looked at the digital display panel inside the vault. It showed 4:52 p.m. Then, as I watched, the numbers flickered. The display went black for a second, came back on, and now it read 6:01 p.m. That's wrong, I said. My mouth was suddenly dry. That's wrong, my watch says 4:52. But the time lock didn't care what my watch said. As far as it was concerned, it was after 6 p.m., and the vault was now sealed until morning. Sarah. I pounded on the door. Sarah, call the manufacturer. Call someone. The time lock malfunctioned. Her response was faint, but I could make it out. I'm calling. I'm calling right now. James sat down on the floor, his back against the wall. His breathing was already getting faster. Marcus, I'm claustrophobic. You know I'm claustrophobic. I did know. He'd mentioned it once, casually, when we were talking about fears. He said he couldn't handle elevators if they got too crowded, couldn't go in attics, hated tight spaces. But he'd never seemed bothered by the vault before. It was big enough. Open enough. But that was when we could leave. It's okay, I told him, trying to keep my voice steady. It's going to be okay. Sarah's calling for help right now. They'll have us out in no time. I didn't believe it. I could hear the lie in my own voice. The vault had emergency lights, small LED strips along the ceiling that ran on battery backup. They gave everything this cold, bluish glow. There was no ventilation system that I could feel. I'd never thought about it before. Why would I? We were never supposed to be in here longer than 20 minutes at a time. I pulled out my phone. No signal. Of course not. 3 feet of reinforced steel in every direction. We were in a cage. James was taking long, deliberate breaths. In through the nose, out through the mouth. How long can we breathe in here? He asked. That question hit me like a punch to the stomach because I didn't know the answer. The vault was about 12 by 15 feet. Ceiling was maybe 8 feet high. That's, what? About 1,440 cubic feet of air? I tried to remember anything from high school chemistry about oxygen consumption rates. An average person uses about 0.84 cubic feet per hour. 2 of us. So maybe we had 24 hours of air? Maybe. I didn't tell James my math. I didn't want to think about what happened if I was wrong. Sarah's getting help, I said instead. We'll be out long before that matters. But the minutes kept ticking by. 5 minutes. 10. 15. I pressed my ear against the door, trying to hear anything from outside. Muffled voices. Movement. Sarah was out there, I could hear her, but I couldn't make out what she was saying. James had his knees pulled up to his chest now. His breathing was getting worse. I can't do this, Marcus. I can't do this. Yes, you can, I said, sitting down next to him. Look at me. Look at me, James. We're going to be fine. The space is big. We have air. Help is coming. What time is it? I checked my watch. 5:07, they're going to leave. The bank closes at 5. Everyone's going to leave. Sarah won't leave. And the manufacturer is sending someone. They have to have emergency protocols for this exact situation. But even as I said it, I was wondering, how often did this happen? How fast could they get someone here? Did they even have someone local, or would they have to fly in a specialist from the company headquarters? Where was the headquarters? I didn't even know. Another 10 minutes crawled by. The vault was completely silent except for our breathing. I'd never noticed how loud breathing could be. Every inhale and exhale seemed amplified, bouncing off the steel walls. James was trying to keep his breathing steady, but I could tell he was struggling. His hands were shaking. "Tell me about your daughter," I said, trying to distract him. James had a 7-year-old. Emma. I'd met her once when she came to the bank with him. "Emma," he said, and his voice cracked a little. "She's starting piano lessons. She hates them. Complains every week." He laughed, but it sounded wrong. "Her recital is Sunday. I promised I'd be there." "You will be." "What if I'm not?" "You will be, James." He closed his eyes, and I saw tears starting to leak out from under his eyelids. "I can't breathe right. It feels like the air is getting thinner." "It's not. It's just panic. The air is fine." But was it? I took a deep breath, trying to gauge. It felt normal. It felt fine. But now that James had said it, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every breath felt a little more precious. A little more questionable. I stood up and pounded on the door again. "Sarah. Can you hear me?" Nothing. Or maybe something, but too muffled to understand. I turned back to James. He was rocking slightly now, his arms wrapped around his knees. His breathing had turned into short, rapid gasps. He was having a full-blown panic attack. "James, listen to me. You need to slow your breathing. You're hyperventilating." "I can't. I can't." "Yes, you can. Breathe with me. In for 4 counts. Hold for 4 counts. Out for 4 counts. Come on. With me. In, 2, 3, 4. We did the breathing exercise together. It took maybe 10 minutes before his breathing started to even out. But the panic was still there in his eyes. I could see it. This trapped, terrified look. I checked my watch again. 5:34 p.m. If the time lock really believed it was 6:01, that meant we had, what? 14 hours until it would open at 8:30 a.m.? 14 hours in this steel box with no water, no food, and air that might or might not last that long. No. No, they'd have us out before then. They had to. I thought about Sarah outside. She was smart. Capable. She'd be doing everything right. She'd have called the manufacturer, called 911, probably called our district manager. People were working on this. We just had to wait. Waiting in a vault is different than waiting anywhere else. There's no sense of time passing normally. No windows. No sounds from outside except the occasional muffled voice. It's like being suspended. Every minute feels like 5. Every 5 minutes feels like 20. James had gone quiet. He was sitting with his back against the wall, staring at nothing. His breathing was steady now, but he looked defeated. Hollowed out. "My ex-wife is going to be so pissed," he said suddenly. "What?" "If I miss Emma's recital. She's going to say this is typical. That I always put work first. Even when I die at work, I'm putting work first." He laughed, but it was bitter. "She'll probably put that on my tombstone. Here lies James. He really committed to the job. You're not dying. You don't know that." He was right. I didn't know that. I was going off of hope and assumptions about how much air we had and how quickly help could arrive. I was going off of the belief that the world made sense, that safety systems worked, that this kind of thing didn't just happen to normal people doing normal jobs. But that belief was cracking. I checked my watch. 6:03 p.m. It had been an hour and a half. If they were going to get us out quickly, they would have done it by now. Something was wrong. Something was taking longer than it should. I stood up and examined the vault door more carefully. It was solid steel, 3 feet thick, designed to withstand explosives and cutting torches. Even if they wanted to cut us out, it would take hours. Maybe days. You couldn't just call a locksmith for something like this. You needed specialized equipment, specialists who understood the locking mechanism, probably approval from half a dozen different people before they could even start. We were going to be here a while. We should conserve energy, I said. Just sit. Stay calm. Breathe normally. James didn't respond. He was back to staring at nothing. I sat down next to him and checked my phone again. Still no signal. I opened random apps just to have something to do. My battery was at 64%. I should probably turn it off, save it in case what? In case we needed it later? For what? Time crawled. 6:30, 7 o'clock. 7:30, I was getting thirsty. My mouth felt dry, my throat scratchy. I hadn't had anything to drink since lunch. James had to be feeling it too, but he hadn't said anything. He'd barely moved in the last hour. James? You okay? No. At least he was honest. Talk to me. What are you thinking about? Emma's recital. I'm thinking about how she's going to stand on that stage on Sunday and look out at the audience and I won't be there. She'll see the empty seat. She's going to think I forgot. Or that I didn't care enough to come. She won't think that. And you'll be there. We'll be out of here long before Sunday. Will we? I didn't answer because I was wondering the same thing. The temperature was starting to drop. Not dramatically, but noticeably. The vault held the day's warmth, but now that it was evening, the steel was slowly radiating that heat away. In a few hours, it would be cold. Not dangerously cold, probably, but uncomfortable. I heard something outside the door. Voices. Multiple voices. I jumped up and pressed my ear against the steel. Hello? Can you hear us? The voices stopped. Then Sarah's voice, louder and clearer than before, obviously speaking directly at the door. Marcus? Can you hear me? Yes. Yes, we can hear you. The manufacturer is here. They're working on it. They said the time lock malfunctioned and locked early, but they can override it manually. They need about an hour. Relief crashed through me so hard I almost sat down right there. An hour. We can do an hour. Did you hear that, James? 1 more hour. James nodded, but he didn't look relieved. He looked exhausted. But they were working on it. 1 more hour. We could do that. We'd already done 3 hours, 1 more was nothing. I checked my watch. 8:14 p.m. Stay with us, Sarah. I yelled. Keep talking. We need to hear voices. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. She started talking, just filling the silence. Telling us about the people who'd arrived, about the specialist from the manufacturer who'd driven from Cincinnati, about how half the local police department was apparently in the parking lot. Hearing her voice helped. It made the vault feel less like a tomb. James was listening too. I could see some life coming back into his eyes. 1 hour. Just 1 more hour. But an hour came and went. Then another 30 minutes. Then another 30 after that. By 10:30 p.m., James was lying on the floor, curled into a fetal position. He wasn't talking anymore. I kept calling out to Sarah, asking for updates, and she kept saying, "They're working on it, they're almost there, just a little longer." But, a little longer, kept stretching. The thirst was bad now. My throat felt like sandpaper. My lips were dry and cracking. I kept swallowing, but there was no saliva left. James had to be suffering too, but he seemed beyond caring. The cold was worse. My fingers were stiff. I kept flexing them, trying to keep the blood flowing. James was shivering on the floor. I sat down next to him and put my hand on his shoulder. "Hey. Stay with me." No response. "James. Come on. Talk to me. I'm so thirsty." "I know. Me too. But they're almost done. We're almost out." "You keep saying that." He was right. I did keep saying that. And I was starting to sound like a liar even to myself. I checked my watch. 11:47 p.m. 7.5 hours. We'd been in here for 7.5 hours. I did the math again. 1,440 cubic feet of air. 2 people. 0.84 cubic feet per hour per person. That's 1.68 cubic feet per hour total. We should have, I calculated, around 25 hours of air at rest. More if we stayed calm and breathed slowly. But what if my math was wrong? What if the vault wasn't perfectly sealed and we were losing air? What if the steel was absorbing oxygen somehow? What if, stop it, I told myself. That kind of thinking doesn't help. But I couldn't stop. Because even if the air lasted, the thirst wouldn't. You can survive 3 days without water, supposedly. But you start getting delirious after the first day. Start making mistakes. Start hallucinating. Would we even make it to morning? "Sarah." I called out, my voice cracking. "How much longer?" Her response was faint. I couldn't make out the words. But the tone was wrong. It sounded worried. Uncertain. Something was seriously wrong with the override process. I sat back down next to James. He'd stopped shivering. That wasn't good. When you stop shivering, it means your body is giving up on warming itself. "James. James, you need to move around. Get your blood flowing." "No. James, please. Just let me sleep." "You can't sleep. Not yet. Come on, stand up. Walk with me." I pulled him to his feet. He resisted at first, but then let me guide him. We walked circles around the vault, 12 steps one way, 15 steps the other way, then back again. Around and around. It was something to do. Something to keep us moving. Keep us awake. We walked for maybe 20 minutes before James pulled away and sat back down. "I can't." I sat down too. My legs were shaking. The walking had helped with the cold but made the thirst worse. I checked my watch. 12:34 a.m. 8.5 hours. I thought about my apartment. About my bed. About the bottle of water I kept on my nightstand. About my cat, who was probably meowing at the door right now, wondering where I was. Simple things. Normal things. Things I'd taken completely for granted. "Marcus?" James's voice was weak. "Yeah. If we don't make it out, tell Emma I tried. Tell her I wanted to be at her recital. You're going to tell her yourself. Promise me. James, promise me." I looked at him. His face was pale in the LED light. His eyes were glassy. I promise. He nodded and closed his eyes. That's when I heard it. A different sound outside the door. Mechanical. Metal on metal. Grinding. I stood up and pressed my ear to the door. Sarah? What's happening? They're cutting. They said the override failed. They're cutting through the lock mechanism. Cutting. They were actually cutting. That meant they'd given up on the elegant solution. They were going brute force. How long? I called out. No answer. Or if there was one, I couldn't hear it over the grinding noise. The sound continued. Stopped. Started again. Stopped. I lost track of time. Just that grinding noise, on and off, on and off. James didn't move. I kept checking to make sure he was breathing. He was. Shallow, but breathing. The noise changed pitch. Got louder. More intense. I stepped back from the door. Then, suddenly, a loud crack. Metal shrieking. The door shuddered. And then it opened. Light flooded in. Bright, painful light. I raised my hand to shield my eyes. Sarah was there, and behind her a crowd of people. Firefighters. Police. Bank security. The specialist from the manufacturer, holding some kind of industrial cutting tool. Marcus. Oh my God, Marcus. She grabbed me as I stumbled out. My legs barely worked. Someone wrapped a blanket around my shoulders. Someone else put a bottle of water in my hands. I drank it so fast I almost choked. James, I managed to say. James is still inside. The firefighters went in and carried him out. He wasn't conscious. They loaded him onto a stretcher, put an oxygen mask on his face, rushed him to an ambulance. Someone was asking me questions. How did I feel? Was I injured? Could I walk? I answered on autopilot. I felt like I was outside my body, watching someone else respond. They took me to the hospital too. Dehydration. Mild hypothermia. They kept me overnight for observation. James spent 3 days in the hospital. The panic attacks had triggered some kind of cardiac event. Not a heart attack, but close enough to scare everyone. He was okay, though. He'd recover. The investigation revealed that the time lock had experienced a firmware glitch. Some kind of bug in the system that caused it to skip ahead in time by 70 minutes. The manufacturer issued a recall for that model of vault door. Our bank switched to a different system entirely. James quit 2 weeks after getting out of the hospital. Took a job doing accounting at a law firm. I don't blame him. He couldn't even look at the bank building anymore. Sarah still works there. She named her daughter's soccer team the Vault Warriors that season. I think it was her way of processing what happened. I stayed on as manager for another year before I finally admitted to myself that I couldn't do it anymore. Every time I walked past the vault, my chest would tighten. My hands would start shaking. I'd remember that feeling of the door swinging shut, that heavy, final sound. Chunk. I manage a credit union now. They don't have a vault. Just an ATM and a safe that 2 people could lift if they really tried. It suits me fine. People ask me sometimes if I'm scared of enclosed spaces now. If I have nightmares. The truth is more complicated than that. I'm not afraid of small spaces. I'm afraid of being trapped. I'm afraid of doors that won't open. I'm afraid of time running out. But mostly, I'm afraid of how fragile everything is. How a system you trust completely can fail in an instant. How the thing built to protect you can become the thing that kills you. I haven't been inside a bank vault since that night. I never will again. Some doors, once they close on you, you never trust to open again. My name is Jennifer, and I inherited my grandmother's safety deposit box when she died. I wish I hadn't. Gran died on a Sunday in August, peaceful in her sleep at 92 years old. She'd lived a good life. Raised 4 kids after my grandfather died young. Worked as a seamstress. Went to church every Sunday. The kind of person who'd never said an unkind word about anyone, as far as I knew. At the funeral, her lawyer handed me a small brass key along with the other estate documents. Your grandmother wanted you to have the contents of her safety deposit box, he said. Box 247 at Riverside Bank. I didn't think much of it. Probably some old jewelry. Maybe some savings bonds. Gran had always been practical about money. She'd lived through the Depression and never quite trusted banks with cash, but she'd kept important documents locked up safe. I went to the bank on a Tuesday morning. Riverside Bank was one of those old buildings, built in the 1930s with marble floors and high ceilings. It had that permanent smell of old paper and furniture polish. The kind of place that felt frozen in time. I presented the key and the death certificate to a bank officer named Patricia. She was maybe 60, with reading glasses on a chain and a nameplate that said she'd worked there for 35 years. She gave me her condolences, checked the records, and led me down to the vault room. The vault room was different from what I'd expected. It wasn't a big steel cage like in movies. It was more like a narrow corridor lined floor to ceiling with small metal doors. Each door had a number and 2 keyholes, one for the customer's key, one for the bank's key. Patricia found box 247. It was one of the larger boxes, about 12 inches wide and maybe 6 inches tall. She inserted her key into the left hole. I inserted mine into the right hole. We turned them simultaneously, and the door clicked open. She pulled out a long metal box, about 2 feet deep, and carried it to one of the private viewing rooms off the corridor. These were tiny rooms, just big enough for a chair and a small shelf. Patricia placed the box on the shelf. Take your time, she said. Just let me know when you're finished. She stepped out and closed the door. I sat down and looked at the box. It was heavier than I expected. I lifted the lid. Inside was a leather journal. That was it. No jewelry, no bonds, no cash. Just a worn leather journal, the kind with a strap that wrapped around it twice and tied. I picked it up. The leather was soft, cracked with age. I untied the strap and opened to the first page. In my grandmother's handwriting, for Jennifer. I'm sorry. That already made my stomach drop. Gran never apologized for anything because she never did anything wrong. What was she sorry for? I turned the page. The journal was dated. It started in 1952, the year after my grandfather died. Each entry was just a few lines, dates and names mostly. It took me a few entries to understand what I was reading. March 15, 1952, Sarah Mackin, 22. Gave her $47. She cried. April 3, 1952, Robert Teague, 19. Gave him $103. He didn't say anything. May 20, 1952, Dorothy Ellis, 26. Gave her $215. She asked why. I said it was what she was owed. Page after page after page. Different names. Different amounts. All through the 1950s and 60s and 70s. The amounts got larger as the years went on. Hundreds of dollars. Then thousands. June 12, 1978, Michael Washington, 34. Gave him $4,200. He said it didn't make it right. I know. I flipped through faster, looking for some explanation. Some context that would make sense of what I was reading. But it was just names and numbers, years of names and numbers. The last entry was dated 3 months before Gran died. May 4th, haven't been able to find any more. I've tried. I've looked. Maybe there aren't any left. Maybe they're all gone. But the money's still here. Jennifer will know what to do. Below that, an account number. A local bank account I'd never heard of. I sat there in that little room, staring at the journal. My hands were shaking. Who were these people? What was my grandmother giving them money for? What did what she was owed mean? I went through the journal again, slower this time, looking for patterns. The names were all different, but, wait. No. Some names were repeated. Sarah Mackin appeared again in 1955. Robert Teague in 1957. Different amounts, but the same people. And then I noticed something else. Next to some names, there was a small mark. Just a tiny asterisk. I hadn't seen it at first, but once I noticed one, I saw them everywhere. Maybe a third of the names had that little star next to them. What did it mean? I closed the journal and sat back. My heart was pounding. This felt wrong. Whatever this was, it felt deeply, terribly wrong. I gathered up the journal and left the viewing room. Patricia was waiting in the corridor. All finished? She asked. Actually, I need to ask you something. This journal has an account number in it. Can you tell me anything about that account? She took the journal carefully, like it might bite, and looked at the number I pointed to. Her face changed. Got careful. That's. Let me check our records. Can you wait here for a moment? She disappeared into an office. I stood in the corridor, surrounded by all those metal boxes. How many other secrets were locked in here? How many other families had journals like this, waiting to be opened? Patricia came back 15 minutes later with another woman, younger, wearing a suit. A manager, maybe. Ms. Hartford? I'm Carol Simmons, the branch manager. Can we speak in my office? She led me upstairs to an office with a window overlooking the street. She closed the door and sat down behind her desk, and suddenly I felt like I was in trouble for something. The account number in your grandmother's journal, Carol said carefully, is an account that's been here since 1952. It was opened under your grandmother's name with an initial deposit of $500. Over the years, she continued to make deposits. The current balance is approximately $240,000. I stopped breathing for a second. I'm sorry, what? $240,000. The account has been dormant for 3 months, since your grandmother's last deposit. I don't understand. Gran lived in a tiny apartment. She worked as a seamstress. She lived on Social Security. How did she have that kind of money? Carol looked uncomfortable. I don't know. But according to our records, she made regular deposits for over 60 years. Small amounts, mostly. $20 here, $50 there. It accumulated. I looked down at the journal in my lap. All those names. All those amounts she'd given away. Where had the money come from? And why was there still so much left? Ms. Hartford, as the executor of your grandmother's estate, this account now belongs to you. If you'd like to close it or transfer the funds, no, I said. No, I need to understand what this is first. I went home and spent the rest of the day going through the journal more carefully. I made a list of all the names. There were hundreds of them. Some appeared only once. Others appeared multiple times over the years. I started with the most recent name. A woman called Margaret Foster, listed 6 months before Gran died. Gave her $1,200. She said she'd wondered if I'd forgotten. Margaret Foster. I searched the name online. Found an obituary from 2 months ago. She'd lived in the next town over, died at 87. The obituary mentioned she'd worked as a domestic worker most of her life. Domestic worker. I went back through the journal looking for occupations. Gran had noted them sometimes, in parentheses after the names. Housekeeper. Janitor. Cook. Laundress. Day worker. And then I saw it. All the names with the asterisk next to them. They were all black names. I couldn't be completely sure without checking each one, but the pattern was clear. The names with stars were African American. The names without were white. My grandmother had been giving money to black workers. For 60 years. But why? I called my mother. She was Gran's oldest daughter, would have been a teenager in the early 50s. Mom, did Gran ever work anywhere besides doing sewing from home? Well, before your grandfather died, she worked at the textile mill. Why? Which mill? Riverside Mill, I think. Honey, what's this about? Did she ever talk about the people she worked with? Not really. It was a long time ago. Jennifer, what's going on? I didn't answer. I'd already hung up and was searching for information about Riverside Mill. It took me 3 days of research to piece it together. Riverside Mill had operated from 1920 to 1965. During that time, it employed both white and black workers, but like most southern mills in that era, they had separate pay scales. White workers were paid by the hour. Black workers were paid by piece rate, pennies per pound of cotton processed. In 1951, there was a class action lawsuit filed by the black workers, claiming wage discrimination. The lawsuit was settled out of court. The mill agreed to pay back wages. But the payments were significantly less than what the workers had actually been owed. Gran had worked in the payroll office. I sat at my kitchen table with this information spread around me. The journal. The account number. The research about the mill. My grandmother had known. She'd processed those payroll records. She'd seen exactly how much the black workers were being cheated. And after my grandfather died, after the lawsuit was settled for pennies on the dollar, she'd started making her own payments. She'd been trying to make it right. But where had the money come from? Her seamstress work wouldn't have generated that kind of income. Even small amounts over 60 years, that was. I did the math. She would have needed to set aside $20 to $30 every single week. That was impossible on what she made. Unless. I went back to the bank. Asked to see Gran's account history. All of it. The deposits weren't from her seamstress income. They were transfers. From another account. An account in both her name and my grandfather's name. Can I see the history of this account? I asked Patricia. She pulled it up. The account had been opened in 1945. Regular deposits from Riverside Mill. My grandfather's paychecks. How much was in this account when my grandfather died? I asked. Patricia scrolled through the records. Approximately $5,000. That was the initial balance before Gran started making transfers. She'd been using my grandfather's saved wages to pay back the workers he'd worked alongside. Workers who'd been cheated by the same company that had paid him fairly. It made sense now. All of it made sense. But it also meant that the remaining $240,000 wasn't really hers. It was stolen wages she hadn't been able to return because the workers had died or moved away or she couldn't find them. I looked at Patricia. I need to find these people. The ones in the journal. Or their families. That's going to be very difficult. Many of these names are from decades ago. I know. But I have to try. I spent the next 6 months tracking down the names in the journal. The ones with asterisks who hadn't been paid yet. It was incredibly hard. Many of the workers had died. Some families had moved away. Some had no traceable descendants. But I found some. A grandson of Sarah Mackin in Atlanta. A daughter of Robert Teague in Chicago. The niece of Dorothy Ellis in Memphis. I met with each one personally. Showed them the journal. Explained what their relative was owed. Wrote them checks. Some cried. Some were angry, not at me, but at the decades of waiting, at the injustice that had taken so long to acknowledge. Some just sat quietly, looking at the check like they couldn't quite believe it was real. The grandson of Sarah Mackin told me his grandmother had talked about the mill sometimes, about how she'd worked there for 15 years and never had enough money to buy her kids new shoes. She said a white lady from the mill once gave her some money out of nowhere, years after the mill closed. She never knew why. Said it was like an angel sent it. I cried in my car after that meeting. I'm still searching. Still going through the journal, trying to trace the names. The bank account has about $180,000 left now. Every time I find someone, every time I can hand over a check and say, this is what your mother was owed, or this is what your grandfather earned, it feels like closing a circle. But it's not enough. It was never enough. No amount of money can buy back 60 years of struggling to get by on stolen wages. No amount of money can make up for the indignity of being valued less for doing the same work. My grandmother knew that. That's why she apologized in the journal. Not because she'd done something wrong, she was trying to do something right. But because she knew it would never be enough. I keep the journal in my own safety deposit box now, in a different bank. I can't stand going back to Riverside Bank, walking past that vault, thinking about Gran going there every few months for 60 years, making her small deposits. Trying to pay back what was never hers to begin with. People ask me why I'm doing this. Why I'm spending my time and money tracking down these families. Some think I'm being taken advantage of, that someone might claim to be a relative when they're not. But I show them the journal. I show them Gran's handwriting, listing names and amounts with the precision of someone who worked in payroll, who knew down to the penny what was owed. I show them the note at the beginning, for Jennifer. I'm sorry. She left this for me because she knew she wouldn't finish. She'd done what she could, but there was more work to do. And she trusted me to do it. So I am. Last month, I found the daughter of Michael Washington, the man from the 1978 entry who'd said the money didn't make it right. She's 76 now, living in a nursing home. I brought her a check for $4,200, the same amount Gran had given her father, adjusted for inflation. She looked at the check and then at me. My father never told me about this. About someone trying to make it right. Maybe he didn't want you to hope for something that might never come, I said. She nodded slowly. He was right that the money doesn't make it right. But tell your grandmother thank you anyway. For trying. I will, I said, even though Gran can't hear me anymore. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the apology in the journal wasn't for the workers, or for me. Maybe it was for herself. For living in a world where trying to fix an injustice took 60 years and still wasn't finished. I have 12 names left to find. 12 families to locate. 12 payments to make. And then I'll close the account and close the journal and put that part of my family's history to rest. But I'll never stop thinking about it. About how a safety deposit box isn't just a place to store valuables. Sometimes it's a place to store guilt, and responsibility, and the unfinished business of trying to make the world a little less broken. Sometimes the most valuable thing you can inherit isn't money. It's the knowledge of what still needs to be done. My name is David, and I made a withdrawal from my bank account that technically never stopped. I'm still withdrawing money I don't have from an account that shouldn't exist. It started simple. Too simple. That's what should have tipped me off. I was 28, working in IT support, living paycheck to paycheck like most people my age. My bank was one of those online-only institutions, no physical branches, everything through an app. Lower fees, better interest rates, the whole modern banking pitch. I'd been with them for 2 years without any problems. On a Thursday in September, I needed to transfer $200 to my roommate for rent. I opened the app, navigated to the transfer screen, entered the amount and his account information, hit submit. The app froze. Spinning wheel. I waited maybe 30 seconds before the app crashed completely. I reopened it and checked my balance. The $200 was gone. Okay, fine. The transfer went through despite the crash. Annoying, but not the end of the world. Except when I checked my roommate's account an hour later, he hadn't received anything. I called customer service. Got a representative named Brad who sounded like he was reading from a script. He pulled up my account. I see the transaction, sir. It shows as pending. Should process within 1 to 3 business days. It's never taken that long before. System hiccup, probably. These things happen. I wouldn't worry about it. I worried about it anyway, but there wasn't much I could do. I told my roommate I'd Venmo him the money instead and we'd sort it out when the bank transfer cleared. On Friday, I checked the app. The $200 was still gone from my account, still showing as pending. I checked my roommate's account. Nothing. Saturday, same thing. Sunday night, I opened the app to check one more time before bed. My balance was wrong. It should have been around $1,200, I'd been paid that Friday. Instead, it showed $1,400. I refreshed. Still $1,400. The transaction history showed the $200 transfer as completed. But my balance was $200 higher than it should have been, not lower. It was like the money had been taken out and then put back in, but the app still showed it as taken out. I called customer service again Monday morning. Different representative, same scripted responses. Sir, I'm showing your balance as $1,400. That appears correct based on your recent deposits and withdrawals. But I transferred $200 on Thursday. That should make my balance $1,200. I see that transaction, yes. It shows as completed. But your current balance is $1,400. That doesn't make sense. Let me escalate this to our technical team. Can I put you on a brief hold? 20 minutes later, she came back. Sir, the technical team says there may have been a processing error, but it's been resolved. Your current balance is accurate. So I have $200 extra? No, sir. Your balance is correct. The system shows all transactions properly recorded. Can you walk me through the math? Because I don't see how it adds up. She went through my recent transactions. Paycheck deposit of $1,800. Various debits for groceries, gas, utilities. The $200 transfer to my roommate. According to her calculations, my balance should be $1,200. But the app shows $1,400, I said. Let me check with technical again. Another hold. Another 20 minutes. Sir, I apologize for the confusion. The technical team is investigating the discrepancy. In the meantime, your available balance is $1,400. So I can spend that $200? That's your available balance, yes. But what if it's an error? What if the bank corrects it and suddenly I'm overdrawn? We'll notify you if there are any changes to your account. I didn't spend the money. I figured it was a glitch that would get corrected eventually, and I didn't want to end up owing the bank. But on Tuesday, my balance was $1,600. Same transaction history. Nothing new had been added. But I had another $200. I called customer service again. This time I got escalated to a supervisor named Michelle. She sounded less scripted and more genuinely confused. Mr. Reyes, I'm looking at your account, and this is strange. The system shows multiple pending reversals of the same transaction. What does that mean? It means the $200 transfer you initiated on Thursday has been reversed multiple times. But each reversal is also showing as pending, so the money is being added back to your account, but the original transaction is also still showing as completed. That's impossible. I agree. I'm going to have our IT department look at this. I'll put a note on your account not to use the additional funds until we resolve this. How long will that take? I can't say for certain. These kinds of technical issues can be complex. I'd estimate a week, maybe 2. 2 weeks turned into 4. During that time, my balance kept climbing. Every few days, another $200 would appear. It was always exactly $200. Always the same glitch. $1,800. $2,000. $2,400. I stopped calling customer service. Every time I did, they'd tell me the same thing. IT is working on it, don't spend the money, we'll notify you when it's resolved. But they never resolved it. After 2 months, my balance showed $8,200. I'd actually earned and deposited maybe $3,600 in that time. The rest was just appearing. $200 at a time. Like the bank was stuck in a loop, reversing the same transaction over and over. That's when I made my first mistake. I spent some of it. Not a lot. Just $500. I figured if the bank had been telling me for 2 months that my balance was accurate, maybe it was. Maybe this was legally my money now. I'd been told multiple times it was my available balance. I paid off a credit card. Bought groceries without worrying about the cost for once. Took my girlfriend out to a nice dinner. Nothing happened. No overdraft fees. No angry calls from the bank. My balance continued climbing. $8,700. $9,200. $9,800. I started researching bank error laws. Turns out there's some gray area. If a bank tells you the money is yours and you spend it in good faith, you might not be liable to pay it back. Emphasis on might. Some cases went one way, some went the other way. But I wasn't spending it in good faith, was I? I knew it was an error. I'd been told it was an error. I just hadn't been told to stop using it. My second mistake was bigger. I withdrew $2,000 in cash. I told myself it was a safety net. If the bank corrected the error and locked my account, I'd need cash to live on while it got sorted out. That's what I told myself. Really, I was starting to believe the money might actually be mine. The withdrawal went through without any problems. The ATM spit out $120 bills. I put them in my wallet, my heart pounding, waiting for, I don't know. Alarms? Police? Something. Nothing happened. My balance kept climbing. $10,200. $10,600. $11,000. I withdrew another $3,000. Opened a savings account at a different bank and deposited it there. I was thinking ahead now. If this money somehow was legally mine, I wanted it somewhere the original bank couldn't claw back. That's when I got the email. Important notice regarding your account. My stomach dropped. This was it. They'd figured it out. They were going to demand everything back. I opened the email. Dear valued customer, we've detected unusual activity on your account and have temporarily limited access for security purposes. Please call our fraud department immediately to verify your identity and restore full access. I called. Got transferred to the fraud department. Talked to someone named Rebecca who sounded tired. Mr. Reyes, we flagged your account due to suspicious withdrawal patterns. Can you verify these transactions were authorized by you? She read off the withdrawals. The $2,000. The $3,000. Some smaller ATM withdrawals from recent weeks. Yes, I said. Those were all me. Can you explain the unusually high account balance? Here it was. The moment where I had to admit I'd known about the error. There's been a glitch, I said. I reported it months ago. The bank told me it was being investigated. A glitch? A pending transaction that keeps reversing. I've talked to customer service about it multiple times. I heard typing. I see some notes on your account. Multiple calls about a transfer error. But those notes are from September. It's December now. I know. I kept calling, but nothing was getting resolved, so I stopped. Mr. Reyes, your current balance is showing as $11,600. Your actual deposited funds since opening this account total approximately $9,200. That's a discrepancy of $2,400. Less than I thought. They weren't counting all the phantom $200 deposits. They were counting from the beginning. Which meant, are you saying my balance should be $9,200? I asked. That's what our system should be showing, yes. But it's been showing higher for months. Your customer service reps told me that was my available balance. I don't know what they told you, sir, but I'm looking at the account now, and there's clearly an error. I'm going to need you to return the excess funds. I don't have them. I spent some. Withdrew some. Your bank told me it was my money. Her voice got harder. Sir, you knew there was an error. You reported it yourself. And you told me my balance was accurate. Multiple times. I'm going to need to escalate this. Don't make any more withdrawals. Someone will contact you. She hung up. I sat there with my phone in my hand, my heart racing. I'd spent maybe $4,000 of the phantom money. Withdrawn another $5,000. But if the discrepancy was only $2,400, where had the rest come from? I opened the app to check my transaction history. It took a minute to load, longer than usual. When it did, my balance showed $11,800. It had gone up while I was on the phone. Another $200. The glitch was still happening. I refreshed. $12,000. Refresh. $12,200. It was accelerating. The $200 was appearing faster now. Every few seconds instead of every few days. I watched my balance climb. $12,600. $13,000. $13,400. I tried to close the app, but it froze. The number kept climbing on the frozen screen. $14,000. $14,600. $15,200. I force-closed the app and reopened it. The balance showed $9,200. The correct amount, according to the fraud department. I refreshed. $9,400. Refresh. $9,600. It was still going. Still adding $200 every few seconds. I called the fraud department back. Got Rebecca again. Mr. Reyes, I told you someone would contact you. It's still happening. The glitch. It's getting worse. My balance is increasing right now, while I'm talking to you. What do you mean, right now? Check my account. Check it right now. I heard typing. A pause. More typing. Mr. Reyes, I'm showing your balance as $11,800. I'm looking at my app. It says $10,400. Hold on. More typing. Her voice changed. Got uncertain. I'm going to transfer you to IT support. No, wait, too late. Hold music. I stared at my phone while I waited. The app was still open, the balance still climbing. $10,800. $11,200. It was faster now. Noticeably faster. Someone picked up. Not IT. A voice I didn't recognize. Mr. Reyes? This is Kenneth Shaw. I'm the director of IT operations. We need to close your account. What? Your account is caught in a recursive loop. The system is trying to correct an error by reversing a transaction, but each reversal creates a new error that triggers another reversal. It's cascading. I don't understand. Your account is generating money that doesn't exist. Not just for you, it's creating a deficit in our system that's affecting other accounts. We need to close it immediately before the loop spreads. How do I close it? We're doing it now. You should receive a check for your legitimate balance, $9,200, within 5 business days. And the rest? Disappears. It was never real. My app crashed. When I tried to reopen it, I got an error message. Account not found. They deleted my account. Just deleted it. I never got the check. I called every day for 2 weeks. Every time, I got a different excuse. It was being processed. It was delayed. It would arrive soon. On week 3, I got a letter instead. A formal notice that my account had been closed due to terms of service violations. There was no check. No return of my $9,200. I hired a lawyer. He sent letters. Made calls. Got nowhere. The bank claimed I'd engaged in fraud by withdrawing money I knew to be erroneously deposited. They were keeping my legitimate funds as restitution. I tried to fight it, but my lawyer eventually told me it would cost more to sue than I'd get back. The bank had better lawyers. Deeper pockets. And technically, I had withdrawn money I knew wasn't mine. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. I still have the last screenshot I took of the app before it crashed. The balance showed $18,600 and climbing. But the bank said the discrepancy was only $2,400. Where did the rest go? I've asked myself this question 1,000 times. Was the bank lying about how much they lost? Were they covering up how badly their system had failed? Or was some of that money real, money that had actually been deposited by other customers, and I'd been withdrawing from their accounts without knowing it? I'll never know. The account is gone. The records are sealed. The bank won't talk to me except through lawyers who bill by the minute. I have $5,000 left from the withdrawals I made. It's sitting in that savings account at the other bank. I can't bring myself to spend it. Every time I think about it, I imagine some other customer like me, checking their balance one day and finding it $200 short. Then $400 short. Then $600 short. And they're calling customer service, being told it's just a glitch, being told someone will look into it. Maybe that's happening right now. Maybe the loop never stopped. Maybe it spread to other accounts like the IT director said it might. Maybe there are dozens of people out there, hundreds, watching their balances climb or shrink for no reason, trapped in the same recursive error that trapped me. I'm not a thief. I need you to understand that. I made a withdrawal from my own account. The bank told me the money was mine. I acted on that information. But sometimes I dream about those phantom $200 deposits. I dream they're real. That somewhere in the bank's computers, there's a record of actual money, money that belonged to actual people, being siphoned away by a glitch that should have been fixed in September but wasn't. And I dream about all those people who lost money they couldn't afford to lose because their bank couldn't fix a simple software error. I dream about being the person who accidentally stole from them. I can't prove any of this happened. The account is deleted. The app won't reinstall. Every piece of evidence I had is gone except for that one screenshot and the $5,000 I'm afraid to touch. But I know what I saw. I know what happened. I withdrew $200 from my bank account, and somehow, I'm still withdrawing it. Somewhere in the bank system, that transaction is still pending. Still reversing. Still creating money that doesn't exist and taking money that does. And the only thing I know for certain is that it will never, ever be resolved. Because you can't fix an error that was never supposed to exist in the first place. My name is Amy, and I was a bank teller for 7 years before I quit. I saw something I wasn't supposed to see, and now I can't forget it. I worked at a large national bank in Phoenix. The kind of place with bulletproof glass and security cameras everywhere. We processed thousands of transactions a day. Most of it was boring: deposits, withdrawals, cashing checks. The hardest part of the job was staying focused when you were doing the same thing over and over. But you notice patterns. That's what people don't realize. When you handle someone's money, you see their life. You see when they get paid, when they spend, when they're struggling. You see the overdraft fees stacking up. You see the cash advances. You see people coming in every Friday to cash a paycheck and leave with nothing because it all goes to bills. You're not supposed to judge. You're definitely not supposed to care. But you do. You can't help it. There was this one customer. I'll call him Robert because I can't use his real name. He came in every 2 weeks like clockwork. Always Friday afternoon around 3 p.m. Always made a cash withdrawal of exactly $400. Robert was maybe 40, thin, with graying hair and this nervous way of standing where he'd shift his weight from foot to foot. He was always polite. Always said please and thank you. And he always made the same small talk. How's your day going? Fine, thanks. How about yours? Can't complain. Just need to grab some cash real quick. Every 2 weeks. Same conversation. Same $400. I probably processed 100 of his transactions over the 3 years I worked that branch. Enough that I knew his account by heart. Enough that I could pull it up without even asking for his ID. That's what happened on a Friday in October. Robert came in at 3:15 p.m. A bit later than usual, but not much. He stood at my window and gave me his usual smile. How's your day going? Fine, thanks. How about yours? Can't complain. Just need to grab some cash real quick. Sure thing. $400? You know me too well, he said with a laugh. I pulled up his account without thinking. Typed in the withdrawal amount. Hit enter. The screen flickered. Error message. Insufficient funds. I blinked. That had never happened before. Robert's account always had money in it. Not a lot, but enough. He usually kept a balance of around $2,000. I looked at the current balance. $180. I said, trying to be diplomatic. It looks like there might not be enough to cover the full $400. Would you like to withdraw a different amount? Robert's smile faded. That's wrong. I just got paid yesterday. There should be $1,800 in there. Let me check the recent transactions. I pulled up his history. His paycheck had deposited yesterday, like he said. $1,800 from his employer. But there were other transactions. A lot of other transactions. 3 withdrawals this morning. $500, and $300. All from ATMs. All within an hour of each other. Did you withdraw some cash earlier today? I asked. No. I've been at work all day. I just got off. I looked at the ATM locations. All 3 withdrawals were from machines in California. Different cities: Los Angeles, San Diego, Sacramento. These withdrawals are showing from California, I said carefully. All 3 this morning between 8 o'clock and 9 a.m. Robert's face went pale. I've never been to California. That's when I should have stopped. I should have told him to call the fraud department. I should have handed him the phone number and moved on to the next customer. But I'd been doing this job for years. I knew what fraud looked like. And something about these transactions bothered me. Can you hold on just a minute? I said. I want to check something. I pulled up the detailed transaction logs. Each ATM withdrawal had a timestamp, a location, and a photo. The bank's ATMs all had cameras that snapped a picture during transactions for security purposes. I opened the first photo. California, 8 a.m. The person at the ATM wasn't Robert. It was a woman. Mid-30s, dark hair, wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap. I opened the second photo. Different ATM, 8:30 a.m. Same woman. Different clothes. No sunglasses this time. Third photo. 9 a.m. Same woman. She was looking directly at the camera this time, her face clear. And I recognized her. She was another customer. Someone I'd helped just 2 days ago. I remembered because she'd opened a new account, and I'd been the one to set it up. Her name was Monica. I stared at the photo. My heart was beating fast. This woman had stolen Robert's card information somehow and was using it to withdraw money from ATMs across California. But how did she get the information? And why was I so certain I'd seen her before? Amy? Robert was leaning against the counter. What's going on? I think someone stole your card information and made unauthorized withdrawals. These photos show someone else using your account. Who? I shouldn't have shown him. I knew that. Customer privacy. Bank policy. But I was already in too deep. I turned the monitor so he could see the photo. Do you know this person? Robert stared at the screen. His hands started shaking. That's my wife. I froze. Your wife? Ex-wife. We divorced 2 years ago. How did she get my card information? But I was already pulling up Monica's account. The one I'd helped her open 2 days ago. She'd come in saying she needed a fresh start, new account, clean slate. She'd been charming. Friendly. I remembered she'd complimented my necklace. Her account showed a deposit this morning. 3 separate deposits. $500, $500, and $300. She'd withdrawn money from Robert's account and immediately deposited it into her own account. At my bank. Using accounts I had helped set up. Mr. Robert, I need to get my manager. This is fraud. This is identity theft. She's been draining my account for weeks, Robert said quietly. He wasn't angry. He sounded defeated. I kept seeing small charges I didn't recognize. $20 here, $40 there. But they were small enough that I thought I was just forgetting. I thought I was going crazy. I pulled up his full transaction history. Went back 3 months. He was right. There were dozens of small charges. Different merchants, different locations, but always small enough to not trigger fraud alerts. Always just under the threshold that would require extra verification. She'd been draining him slowly. testing what she could get away with. Building up to the bigger withdrawals. How much has she taken? Robert asked. I did the math. Over 3 months, maybe $3,500. Including today's withdrawals, closer to $5,000. Oh God, Robert said. He put his head in his hands. That's why I couldn't pay rent last month. That's why my credit card got declined. I thought I was just bad with money. I thought it was my fault. I called my manager. Explained the situation. She came out, looked at the evidence, and called the police. While we waited, Robert told me the story. He and Monica had been married for 8 years. The divorce was messy. She'd been angry about the settlement. He got the house, she got some money and debt. She'd contested it, wanted more, but the judge ruled against her. She said she'd make me pay, Robert said. I thought she meant emotionally. I didn't think she'd actually. The police arrived. Took statements. Took copies of the transaction records and the ATM photos. Told Robert to close his account and open a new one. Told him he'd probably get his money back eventually, but it might take months. Monica was arrested that evening. The police found her in a hotel in Sacramento. She still had Robert's card number saved on her phone. She'd gotten it from a credit card skimmer she'd installed on a gas pump he used regularly. That should have been the end of it. Case closed. Justice served. But 2 weeks later, I processed a transaction that made my blood run cold. Another customer. I'll call him Paul. Same situation. Unauthorized withdrawals, ATMs in California, someone else's face in the photos. But the person in the photos wasn't Monica. It was a different woman. Someone I'd never seen before. And when I pulled up Paul's transaction history, I saw the same pattern. Months of small charges. Slow drainage. Building up to bigger withdrawals. I called my manager immediately. She looked at the records and went pale. Amy, pull up a list of all accounts opened in the last 6 months. I did. There were hundreds. Now cross-reference with any accounts that show California ATM activity in the last month. I ran the search. 23 accounts came up. 23 customers, all with unauthorized California ATM withdrawals in the last month. All with the same pattern of slow drainage building to larger thefts. All with photos showing different people at the ATMs. Oh my God, my manager said. It's a ring. There's a fraud ring targeting our customers. The FBI got involved. It turned out Monica wasn't working alone. She was part of a group that specifically targeted divorced men in Arizona. They'd identify victims through public divorce records, install skimmers on gas pumps near their homes and workplaces, collect card information, and then make coordinated withdrawals across California on the same day to maximize how much they could steal before accounts got frozen. They'd been operating for over a year. Had stolen from hundreds of people. Over $2 million total. Monica was the one who'd made the mistake of opening an account at the same bank where she was stealing from customers. She'd gotten greedy. Wanted the money accessible fast. That's what got her caught. The others in the ring were arrested over the next few months. The bank reimbursed all the victims eventually. I got a commendation for noticing the pattern. But here's the thing that still haunts me. How many transactions did I process where someone was standing in front of me, smiling, making small talk, while I moved their stolen money around? How many times did I look at an account balance and not realize it was being drained? How many times did I see the small charges and think nothing of it because they were too small to matter? I thought about Robert. How he'd stood at my window every 2 weeks for 3 years, being polite, making small talk, trusting that his money was safe. And the whole time, someone was stealing from him so slowly that he thought he was going crazy. I thought about Paul and the other 23 victims. How long had they been standing at my window, not knowing? How many times had they checked their balances and felt guilty for not managing their money better, when really, someone was robbing them blind? I started noticing things I hadn't noticed before. The customers who came in less frequently. The ones who stopped making eye contact. The ones whose accounts were slowly shrinking for reasons that didn't make sense. I couldn't stop looking. Couldn't stop checking. Every transaction became a potential crime scene. Every friendly customer became a potential criminal. My manager told me I was being paranoid. Told me the fraud ring was caught, it was over, I could relax. But I couldn't. Because I'd seen how easy it was. How long it had gone on. How many people were hurt before anyone noticed. And I kept thinking, what if it's still happening? What if there are other rings doing the same thing? What if every day I'm processing transactions for victims and criminals and I can't tell the difference because they all smile and say please and thank you and make the same small talk? I quit 6 months after Robert came in that day. I couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't look at account balances without seeing the hidden theft. Couldn't process withdrawals without wondering if the person in front of me was real or fake. Couldn't close my eyes at night without seeing those ATM photos, those strangers' faces using stolen information to drain accounts belonging to people who trusted their money was safe. Robert's money was returned eventually. I heard he moved to a different state. Started over somewhere new. Monica got 5 years in prison. So did the others in the ring. The bank added new security measures. Better fraud detection. More training for tellers about what to look for. But I still think about it. About how I'd helped Monica open her account 2 days before she stole from Robert. How I'd complimented her smile while she was planning to rob people blind. About how I'd seen Robert's account being drained for months and never thought to look closer because the charges were small. Because he was just another customer. Another transaction. Another face in the endless line of people who trust their bank to keep their money safe. I see different faces now when I close my eyes. Not Monica. Not the other criminals. I see Robert, standing at my window, asking for his $400, not knowing that someone had already taken it. That it was already gone. I see him shifting his weight from foot to foot, being polite, saying please and thank you, while his life was being stolen $20 at a time. And I see myself, smiling back, processing his withdrawal, telling him to have a nice day. Not knowing. Not seeing. Not caring enough to look closer. That's the real horror. Not that people steal. Not that criminals exist. But that they can do it right in front of you, and you don't see it. You don't notice. You don't care enough to wonder why. Until it's too late. Until the money is gone. Until someone like Robert realizes that the thing making him feel crazy wasn't his fault after all. I work in retail now. No access to people's accounts. No responsibility for their money. It's better this way. But sometimes, when I'm at a gas pump, I look at the card reader. Really look at it. Check for anything unusual. Any sign of a skimmer. And sometimes, I see them. Little devices that don't quite match. Seams that shouldn't be there. I report every single one I find. It's the least I can do. My name is Ellen, and I helped foreclose on a house that wasn't supposed to be foreclosed. By the time I realized the mistake, someone was already dead. I worked in the foreclosure department of a major bank. Not the part that decided who to foreclose on, I was in processing. My job was to handle the paperwork once the decision was made. File the legal notices. Coordinate with the sheriff's office for evictions. Make sure everything was documented properly. It was depressing work, I won't lie. You're essentially the person who takes away people's homes. But I rationalized it. People missed payments. The bank had rules. I was just doing my job. The file came across my desk on a Monday in February. A single-family home in suburban Detroit. Property owner, Margaret Chen. Delinquent on mortgage payments for 8 months. Standard foreclosure procedure. I opened the file and started processing. Generated the foreclosure notice. Prepared the eviction timeline. Sent everything to the sheriff's office to schedule the physical removal if needed. Standard stuff. I probably processed 20 files like it that week. But there was one thing that bothered me. Just a small thing. The file notes mentioned that Mrs. Chen had been trying to work out a payment plan with the bank. Multiple calls to customer service. Multiple requests for loan modification. All denied. That happens sometimes. People think they can negotiate, but if you're too far behind, the bank's position is usually firm. Pay what you owe or lose the house. Still, something about it stuck with me. The notes mentioned she was elderly. A widow. Living on Social Security. She'd owned the house for 30 years, almost had it paid off. The mortgage balance was only $30,000. 8 months of missed payments on a $30,000 mortgage. That was maybe $2,000 in total arrears. The bank was foreclosing over $2,000. But that happened. Rules were rules. I sent the foreclosure notice certified mail. It would arrive within 3 business days. Mrs. Chen would have 30 days to vacate or cure the delinquency. 2 weeks later, I got a call from the sheriff's office. We need to delay the eviction on the Chen property, the deputy said. Why? The homeowner is deceased. We found her when we went to serve the notice. She'd been dead for about a week. My stomach dropped. She's dead? Natural causes, looks like. Medical examiner said probably a heart attack. But we can't proceed with eviction until the estate is settled. Of course. I'll put a hold on the file. I hung up and sat there staring at my computer screen. Mrs. Chen was dead. Had been dead for a week when I sent that foreclosure notice. Maybe had been dead before I even opened her file. I pulled up the file again, looking at the dates more carefully. Last customer service call, January 10th. She'd called asking about payment options. Was told she needed to pay the full delinquent amount or face foreclosure. Last payment attempt, January 12th. A check for $500. It had bounced. Insufficient funds. The foreclosure decision, January 15th. The last contact from Mrs. Chen, January 18th. An email to customer service. Subject line, please help. I opened the email. I don't know who else to contact. I've called multiple times. I'm trying to pay but I don't have enough. My husband died last year and I lost his income. I'm 78 years old and I've lived in this house for 30 years. Please give me more time. Please don't take my home. I have nowhere else to go. The response from customer service was auto-generated. Thank you for contacting us. Your request has been forwarded to the appropriate department. No human had ever read it. I could tell from the file notes. It had come in, been tagged, and filed away. No one followed up. No one called her back. And 3 days later, she died. I don't know if the stress killed her. I'm not a doctor. Maybe she would have had that heart attack anyway. Maybe it had nothing to do with losing her house. But I kept thinking about that email. I have nowhere else to go. And then she didn't go anywhere. Because she died. I put the file aside and tried to focus on other work. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. That night, I did something I wasn't supposed to do. I looked up Mrs. Chen's account history. Not just the mortgage. Everything. She'd been a customer for 40 years. Checking account, savings account, mortgage, all at our bank. The checking account showed her Social Security deposits. $1,200 a month. Like clockwork. And then I saw something that made my blood run cold. Starting in September, 5 months before her death, there were strange charges. Large charges. $800 here, $600 there. Always to the same merchant, Senior Care Associates. I googled the name. It was a company that provided home health care for elderly people. Medical equipment. In-home nursing. That sort of thing. Mrs. Chen had been sick. That's why she couldn't pay the mortgage. She was spending everything she had on healthcare. I pulled up her mortgage payment history. For 30 years, she'd never missed a payment. Not once. Perfect record. And then her husband died, and the payments stopped. Not because she didn't want to pay. Because she literally couldn't afford to pay and afford the healthcare she needed to survive. And we'd foreclosed anyway. I went to my manager the next day. "We need to cancel the Chen foreclosure," I said. "Why?" "She's dead. And I think we made a mistake. She was sick, she was trying to get help, and we didn't respond." My manager looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "Ellen, we respond to hundreds of modification requests a month. We can't approve all of them." She'd been a customer for 40 years. The mortgage balance was only $30,000. The arrears were $2,000. We could have worked something out. Maybe. But that's not your decision. Your job is to process foreclosures, not evaluate whether they should happen. But she died. Don't you think the estate will be settled through probate? If there are heirs, they can contest the foreclosure. But that's not our problem. Close the file and move on. I couldn't move on. I started looking at other files. Other foreclosures. How many of them were like Mrs. Chen? How many were elderly people, sick people, people who'd fallen behind because of circumstances beyond their control? I found 12 more that month. 12 people who'd been perfect customers for decades, then hit a crisis, medical bills, job loss, spouse's death, and couldn't catch up. All facing foreclosure over relatively small amounts. One man owed $1,500 in arrears on a mortgage that was months away from being paid off. We were foreclosing on a house he'd almost completely paid for, over 3 missed payments. Another woman had been paying double payments for years, trying to pay off the house early. Then her son got cancer and she had to help with his medical bills. She missed 4 months of payments. We were foreclosing. Every file told the same story. People who'd done everything right for years, hit one crisis, and lost everything because the bank's policy was inflexible. I went back to my manager with the files. "Look at these. All of these people, they're not deadbeats. They're not trying to cheat the system. They hit rough patches and we're not helping. Ellen, I understand you're upset about the Chen case. But this is how the system works. We're not a charity. We're a business. These people have been paying us for decades. Mrs. Chen paid this bank for 40 years. Doesn't that count for anything? It counts for the services we provided. We gave them loans. They agreed to the terms. If they can't meet those terms, we have the right to foreclose. Even if it kills them." My manager's face went hard. "That's not fair and you know it. Mrs. Chen's death is tragic, but it's not the bank's fault. We foreclosed on a 78-year-old widow over $2,000. How is that not our fault? Ellen, you need to decide if you can do this job. If you can't handle the emotional aspect, maybe you should consider a different department." I walked out of that meeting knowing I was going to quit. I just needed to do one thing first. I pulled Mrs. Chen's file again. Looked for any heirs. Any family who might contest the foreclosure or claim the estate. There was a daughter, Jessica Chen, living in California. I found her phone number in the file notes. She'd been listed as the emergency contact. I wasn't supposed to call her. It wasn't my place. But I did it anyway. Miss Chen. My name is Ellen. I work for the bank that holds your mother's mortgage. I'm calling about the foreclosure proceedings. I know about the foreclosure. Her voice was flat. Exhausted. I've been trying to deal with it. I wanted to tell you. I think we made a mistake. Your mother tried to work out a payment plan. We should have done more to help her. There was a long silence. You think? I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but do you know how I found out my mother died? The sheriff's office called me. Said they found her body when they went to serve the eviction notice. My mother died alone because she was so stressed about losing her house that she didn't even tell me how bad things had gotten. She didn't want to worry me. She kept saying she'd handle it. I felt tears building behind my eyes. I'm so sorry. She'd lived in that house for 30 years. Raised me in that house. It was the only thing she had left of my father. And your bank took it over $2,000. I know. It's not right. So what are you going to do about it? That stopped me. I don't know. I'm just a processor. I don't make the decisions. Then why are you calling me? To ease your conscience? She hung up. I sat there with the phone in my hand, her words echoing in my head. Why are you calling me? To ease your conscience? She was right. I wasn't calling to help. I was calling to make myself feel better. To feel like I'd done something, even though I hadn't. I went back to my manager one more time. I'm putting together a report. All the foreclosures from the last year where the arrears were less than $5,000 and the customers were elderly or disabled. I want to recommend that we implement a hardship review process before foreclosing in those cases. Ellen, just let me present it. Let me show you the numbers. If you still say no, I'll drop it. She agreed, probably just to get me to stop bothering her. I spent 2 weeks on that report. Documented every case. Showed the pattern. Proved that a significant number of foreclosures were happening to vulnerable people over very small amounts. I presented it to my manager, and she presented it to her manager, and eventually it went up the chain to someone with actual authority. And they said no. Not because the data was wrong. Not because the recommendation was bad. But because implementing a hardship review process would slow down foreclosures. Would require more staff. Would cost money. The shareholders wouldn't like it, I was told. That's when I quit. I couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't process files knowing that every one represented a person's life falling apart. Couldn't send eviction notices knowing that some of those people would end up like Mrs. Chen. Couldn't be the face of a system that cared more about policies than people. Mrs. Chen's house was sold at auction 6 months later. It went for $45,000, $15,000 more than she owed. The excess went to her estate, which meant it went to Jessica. Jessica used the money to establish a legal fund. She sues banks now. Specifically targets foreclosure cases where elderly or disabled people are involved. She's won several cases. Forced banks to change some policies. She called me once, about a year after I quit. Asked if I'd be willing to testify in a case she was working on. I said yes. I still testify sometimes. I tell juries what I saw. I show them files like Mrs. Chen's. I explain how the system works. How people fall through the cracks. I don't work in banking anymore. I'm a paralegal now, working at a legal aid clinic. We help people facing foreclosure. Try to negotiate with banks. Try to find options. Sometimes we succeed. More often we don't. The banks have all the power. They have better lawyers, deeper pockets. And they're really, really good at following policies that protect them while crushing everyone else. But sometimes, not often, but sometimes, we find a case where the bank screwed up badly enough that we can fight back. We can get the foreclosure stopped. We can get someone a second chance. Those are the good days. The bad days are when I get a call that someone died. When I hear that the stress was too much. That they couldn't handle losing everything. That they gave up. Those days, I think about Mrs. Chen. About her email. I have nowhere else to go. And I think about how she died alone, in the house she'd lived in for 30 years, while I processed paperwork that would take it away from her. I think about how I could have done more. Could have fought harder. Could have refused to process the file until someone listened. But I didn't. I followed the rules. I did my job. And someone died. That's not something you get over. That's not something you forget. You just learn to live with it. To carry it. To use it as fuel to try to stop it from happening to someone else. But it keeps happening. Every day. Somewhere, someone is losing their home over an amount of money that wouldn't cover a single month of the CEO's salary. Somewhere, someone is dying from the stress of it. And somewhere, someone like me is processing the paperwork. Following the rules. Doing their job. Until maybe, one day, they can't anymore. Until they see the cost of those rules written in someone's life. Or someone's death. That's when they have to decide, keep following the rules, or break them and try to change things. I chose to break them. It cost me my career. But I sleep better now than I did when I was just doing my job. Mrs. Chen's death taught me something important. Sometimes the rules are wrong. Sometimes the system is wrong. And when following rules leads to people dying, you have a responsibility to break those rules. Even if it costs you everything. Because the alternative, staying silent, processing files, doing your job, costs so much more. It costs lives. And that's a price I'm not willing to pay anymore.